Now, maybe you're like me and you didn't get every single clip right in camera. And if that's the case, then I'm going to show you really quickly how to do just some really basic adjustments to your exposure to fix any problems that you might have had. I want to just tell you though upfront that you're working most likely with the quality of a JPEG when you're shooting video. It's not like raw photos. You don't have a whole lot of detail in here that you can pull from or change. So just be aware of that. But there are some things you can do, and I'm going to show you them really quickly so that you can do them and you won't be frustrated and confused about where to go. So what we're looking at here is the color workspace. So if you're not in this, then you would hop into here. This is color. And I'm just going to cover these little tools over here, the color wheels. So lift is your shadows, gamma is your midtones, gains your highlight, and offset, it's just kind of overall. So this is my clip that's a bit underexposed. I'm going to show you what it looks like when I've made changes so you can see a bit of a difference there. And what you're looking at here is what's called a node. You can think about this as like an adjustment layer in Photoshop or Premiere Pro if you've used Premiere Pro. It's the same kind of thing. So what I'm going to do is just create a new one. And to do that, I've just clicked on Option S, or pressed Option S on my keyboard, Alt S for Windows users. And it's created a new one. But if you're working on it for the first time, then it's going to automatically, it'll have a default one when you start making changes. So what I'm going to do is I'm looking over here at my scopes. My scopes, this is the waveform, and this shows me, this is called the trace, and this shows me information about the exposure, the shadows and the highlights and all of that, and also color. So the first thing I'm going to do is just go over to my highlights and lift them up. Bring them up. So I'm clicking on this little wheel down here and just bringing it to the right so you can see that. And then as I do that, you can see how it's lifting it here. Okay. Now this right here, it corresponds directly with the image. So what you're seeing here are basically her legs and her feet. And then I'm gonna just adjust the midtones and I'm gonna bring the shadows down. So that just adjusts that and brings in a little bit of contrast. And then I'm going to go over to here, play with that a little bit. Another thing that you can do is adjust the curves, and you can use an S-curve if you're familiar and comfortable with using an S-curve. So you can bring your shadows down here and your highlights up here. So you can see how that's affecting things. Now, this image is still really cool, so I'm going to just click on 2 over here if you haven't already got that selected, and adjust the temperature. So I'm going to click on it and then drag my cursor to the right, and it's warming it up. So you can see how it's warming it up there. Okay, and so now I take that off and put it back on so you can see what that looks like, right? So that's it. That's all you got to do if you're trying to adjust your exposure. So if you've underexposed, then you can generally fix that by lifting your highlights and midtones and adjusting the shadows as well. Play around with the S-curve if you want to, but it doesn't have to get more technical than that. And if you're finding it's too cool or too warm, you can adjust the temperature here. You can also adjust the tint here if you need to, and over in 1, you can adjust saturation too. And yeah, so that's a really quick, short mini tutorial on that. If you're finding you have specific ones that, clips that you want to make some minor adjustments to, but I don't want you to get too hung up on all of that. And I want you to just kind of focus more on the assembly side of it. But I know from experience when I first did this, there were times where, I had the assembly and I had this moment that I really liked, but it was just a little bit underexposed and I wanted to fix it. So I wanted to give you the tools to be able to fix that on your own. So I hope that was helpful. Can't wait to see what you guys are creating. I'll chat to you soon.